Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Liam, the Prove It Guy, author of Limitation Is A Mirage. In this podcast, I will be sharing with you actionable tips, routines, and insights that I have gathered over 20 years of extensive study with masters, experts, and world-class performers. My hope with this podcast is to save you time, money, and frustration, helping you fast-track your way to mastery. Hey guys, welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. This time I'm interviewing Craig Galvin. He's been one of my mentors for many years, focusing on hypnosis first and then linguistics and then just how to read people, why I'm doing, what works, what doesn't work, and why it works, why it doesn't work. So in this interview, we talk about his training, we talk about how he got to where he is, why he thinks the way he thinks, about his childhood, things like that. Then we talk about martial arts and memory work and how we incorporate all of these into everything that we do. So I look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions about the interview, or if you want to reach out to Craig. All of his details are below in one of the comments. So thanks again and enjoy the interview. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. I'm here with Craig Galvin, and he's going to give a little introduction to who he is and what he's all about. So fire away, Craig.
Hey, as Liam said, I'm Craig, NLP coach, hypnosis coach. Basically, if there's anything that you want to do regarding communication, changing your life, just improving your life, or wanting to be better, I'm the one who kind of helps you go through it. I've been doing hypnosis and NLP for about 12 years, and then kind of took offshoots of that into basically how we do what we do and how to keep improving every day. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
Do you think you took the offshoots because I know we've worked together, you've mentored me for years, because you're mostly self-taught? Do you think that's why you went so deep into why we do what we do, not just this is it and this is how you do it?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of a good point. It's something that I've posted on some of the forums when we've been talking to various coaches and other trainers. And I'd say about 98% self-taught in everything that I do. The only reason I kind of went on courses was basically to get the certificate that you need to be able to go out and see clients or whatever. And I noticed very quickly that a lot of this stuff, it was gospel. It was you do X and Y happens. But I've always been kind of curious. So everything that I've done, read, studied, practiced, worked on, with everything, I've always wanted to know the how, why, where, when, what does it link into? And then the offshoots kind of came with wanting to know how that came to be. If something doesn't work, I want to know why. And then that was just a massive kind of rabbit hole that I started climbing up the little hill, and then all of a sudden it was just, and it kind of snowballed from there.
You were saying there that you want, whenever things don't work, you want to know, but from experience, you're the same as me. When things do work, you also want to know why. So a lot of people will look at things and then that works and they just go, that works, move on. But you want to know why it works so you can incorporate that into other areas. And I remember when I was studying martial arts, I used to question every form, every movement I was taught. Why do we do that? What's it for? Why should I practice this? And I found that got me in trouble with a lot of the masters that I had around. So do you notice, as you said, quite curious, but we're curious and we're questioners. Do you notice that sort of gets you in trouble with peers and other people in the industry?
It hasn't yet with you, or the likes of our good friend Ben as well, because he's another one like us. We always want to know. I can honestly say, having done this 12 years, I can count on one hand the amount of people it's not doesn't tick off, but they get sick of when you kind of look at something and go, yeah, but have you really broken that down? Because I found this. And they've done a ton of research, but sometimes what you experience isn't in anything you've read in a textbook or a medical journal, and it's just a real life scenario that you've had where you say, yeah, but so yeah, I've had lots and lots of times where it's ticked off a lot of people, to the point certain Facebook forums, they've seen me apply for membership and they've asked around, and all of a sudden it's been a case of he's not coming in. And they won't. I'm not rude to anybody. I'm not discourteous. I don't call names. I don't go off on a rant. I just ask questions. And, if the answer I get coming back doesn't gel with my knowledge and I can see that there's an issue with it, I'll ask and try and pinpoint it. And no, you're not allowed. Don't do it. Don't question. Under any circumstances, just do what you've been told, because that's the way you've been told to do it. And
I think that's why it rubs people up the wrong way, because again, like things like this have been around a long time, like martial arts been around a long time, and when you question a thing that they claim does what it does with everyone, they don't like their dogma, I suppose, being questioned, no matter how courteous you are whenever you do it. So I thought that the reason I brought that up was because it's one of the reasons why we spoke for a wee bit before I actually asked you to mentor me repeatedly until you eventually agreed to do it. But yeah, one of the things I liked about your approach to everything was the fact that it wasn't, you would teach me something or explain something and then say you could find 9 out of 10 people that works, but that 1 out of 10 you need to be ready on the fly to start changing. And that's where I developed the ability to work with a person, not work with the technique or the protocol. We've had many conversations about protocols. They have their place, but you have to, like the same as this interview, I have a plan, but I like the plan to be flexible if I stick to just the plan. But the same thing when you're working with a person. If you work with a protocol or a script, then you're stuck in that protocol, in that script, in that dogma. Whereas your approach was more, look at the person, like even just saying, look at the person. The first time you tell me that, I'm like, right, I see them, they're there. And you're like, no, look at the like, what are they doing? Think of your martial arts. When you watch someone spar, you don't just look at them and go, yep, they're sparring. You think he's moving like this. So where one of the questions I like to ask people is, what if they could tell a story about when they were younger, like what their parents did to sort of typify your environment from like 5 to 10. I think that gives us a good example of how you got to where you are and why you think the way you think. So have you anything like that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, my childhood, I doubt it's any different to kind of anybody else's. Your parents want you to work hard, excuse me, and to study in school and to kind of do your best and apply yourself and all that typical stuff. But with the conversations that we've had, you said that school not.
Nah.
It was pretty much identical for me. I mean, I was bullied day in, day out. But I used to get to spend some evenings and weekends at my grandfather's, and he was very hands-on with everything, which was brilliant. And I remember at the age of about 8 or 9, my parents dropped me off because they had to go to work. And typical Irish family, he'd turn around and go, "Mickey, we've got to fix the lawnmower." I mean, he knew my name was Craig, but for some reason, for his whole life, I was just Mickey. That was it.
Over in Ireland, Mickey means something else as well, so maybe he was getting that song. But go on ahead.
Finished. And he told me what the parts were, and he just sat there and said to me, "It's not working. Fix it. See what you can do." And it was great because I got to pull all this stuff apart with the spanners and very quickly found out that I loved not necessarily what I was doing, but it was more the puzzle. So why it doesn't work, what can I do? And it was just that childlike, I really want to get this done. My parents didn't understand it, because he'd be going off and telling them, what I'd done. They were more like, you've got to focus in school. You've got to knuckle down. You've got to put the work in, because if you don't, your grades are going to suffer. You're not going to get a good job, and all the usual stuff that we kind of hear. But all they ever did, was encourage me. It was a case of nothing was out of reach. Anything that I wanted to try, they'd either save up for it, or they'd sit there and they'd take me to a class. And my mother was the one who got me into martial arts, literally because it was a case of, right, you've been bullied a hell of a lot. There's only so much we can do. You're going to go learn to defend yourself. And literally just after school one evening, took me to my grandfather, said, right, wish him good luck, straight to the martial arts class, dumped me in and went, right, I'll collect you in 2 hours, and just went. It was just, oh. But I think in a way that was what I needed, because my energy, like now, it was all over the place. I want something else to do. And it taught me to kind of focus and really hone in on that one thing. I'll be at home practicing a kata, and then I got thrown into black belt classes when I was a bloody white belt, and all this sort of stuff. So the only thing that I can kind of throw out as to why I'm the way I am today, one, because I'm, as you know, I'm wired slightly differently. I go full bore into everything.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I learned to be able to want to push my limits. There's always been a curiosity. And my grandfather, before he passed, one of the things he said to me was a case of never hold back what you can do, never hold back who you are. People will either understand it or they won't. But as long as you keep getting out of bed each day and just going for something, doesn't matter how big or how small, you'll achieve whatever you want. And that's always stuck. I've never had the word can't. I still don't. There is no can't. No.
I love the idea of trying to push your limits, because again, you're trying to push your limits beyond what they are, and the average person doesn't even know where their limits lie at all. I think, again, just from my own martial art background, I think that's something that gets bred into you doing martial arts. You're told, like, if you were pointed at someone day one, you're going to fight that guy in a week, your brain just goes, no. But once you get doing it, it's like any challenge seems like it's a challenge, but a challenge can be overcome. Whereas a lot of people, in my experience, seem to think the challenge is something that starts with them thinking they're going to fail, and then putting a wee bit of effort in, and then eventually feeling it. Which sort of brings me to my next question. Is there any failure or apparent failure that you've really learned from? Like, when you look back at it, you realize that's what led to successes, or it was a success in itself?
Every bloody one, to be honest. I can't honestly sit here and throw out, there was one major kind of faux pas, cock up, mistake, failure, whatever it was, that was the linchpin for anything. Because when I was talking to somebody a week or so ago, something like this came up, and it was the aspect of, if somebody sees you doing something on stage, they go, oh my God, you make it look effortless. Ben makes stuff look effortless. Some of the people we know make it, but they don't see behind the scenes of how many times we failed, or, and not necessarily with clients, touch wood, there's obviously been times when something hasn't kind of gone to plan because the client hasn't told me everything, and I wasn't acute enough to be able to see there was something being hidden at the time, and then I've been thrown a curveball. But every single time I make a cockle, every single time I second guess myself, and I don't trust what I know I can do. I was doing memory training today. Okay, touch wood, today was like a really good day. Yesterday, mistakes all over the place, and it's purely because I wasn't in the mindset. I didn't have the focus for it. It was just that, right, got to get it done, got to get the training in, can't really be bothered. So, of course, something on the TV, kids are playing around, dogs running around. And it went completely to crap. And I kicked myself for about 20 minutes afterwards because I knew I could do it. So for me, the failures are, I look forward to them. I like them. And a lot of people don't. Because there's a gentleman by the name of Ray Cronise, former NASA scientist, now into all helping people with plant-based nutrition and losing weight and all this sort of stuff. But he says, I look forward to failure because it's when I learn the most.
Yeah.
And it's true. If you're successful at every single thing you do first time, what realistically do you learn? So then you have to break it apart, strip it down. If I take this away, does it still work? Well, no. Right. That's a key component. So, nothing major, touch wood, as of yet. But there is something I'd say weekly, if not
Yeah.
daily, most days on some things that I completely cock up with and I learn from.
Well, it's mostly you're learning and failing weekly and daily because you are challenging yourself weekly and daily. Like I think if you're not failing, you're probably not progressing. You're not learning anything new. So you've touched on a few things that I'll come back to. The first one is when you talked about not with a client, but you have been throwing curveballs. So at the start of working with clients, you wouldn't have had the knowledge you have now or the observation skills, linguistic skills. For me, I think that's a vital part of working in a one-to-one basis with clients, especially if they're coming with something like depression or anxiety or PTSD. They will lie to you. They will hide stuff from you. And if you're not aware, like you said, you weren't acute enough to notice it initially. So do you think it's something that I feel it's overlooked in the industry, but do you think, am I on the right path here? Or do you think that people need to take more time to develop observation skills and even memory skills? Like when you're talking, I'm using the memory skills I have to lock in questions that I'm coming back to and as I let you finish. So do you think it's something that's important within working one-to-one to have these observation skills and this memory work, or is it just something you like to do on the side?
I think for me, the skills that I've got, they don't just apply to therapy, much like the ones that you've got. It's a day-to-day, it enhances everything you do to some degree.
Yeah.
But with clients, I see it a lot with people who they've either just qualified or they've been doing it 20, 30 years. In which case they pull in, an authority card. I've been doing this 30 years. I've wrote 10 books. And it's like, well, yeah, but you still don't know anything because you wouldn't have cocked up. Egotistical, maybe. But if the signs were there, why didn't you see them? I think anybody going out to become a therapist needs to learn that, one, it's not always easy. It's not. Two, it's not just about if I talk to the subconscious and that changes the pattern of behavior and that in turn will make them slim or get rid of their anxiety or stop them smoking or whatever it is. One, you need to realize that's not the case. Okay. I know kind of Liam sat there smirking because we've been through this on all the coaching and he's found out as well.
Yeah.
It's the work that you do with the person. Okay. If they believe it, it's great. If you've got the rapport, even better, right? Because it makes it a hell of a lot easier. If they are willing to give up, your job's 90% of the way done.
Yeah.
Your observational skills, yes, hone them. Not to a degree that, kind of like, I do or Liam does or Ben does, because we've all got varying degrees of experience in it.
You kind of just need to up it a wee bit. It doesn't have to be the Jason Bourne version. Just most people are, in my eyes, working at about 10%. If you just elevated yourself to 15, you're ahead of the game.
One of the things I say to people, and it's kind of true, it's like if something feels off with the session, stop, take a moment. Don't sit there and spend half an hour trying to work out what it is, but you can turn around to the client and say, it seems like something about what I said was bothering you.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 they'll turn around and go, oh, actually, yeah, but it's probably nothing, but it's made you kind of think. So that's what we hit, and that could be the linchpin that blows apart the whole. Ordinarily you'd have missed it. How many times have we been talking and I've sent you examples of things and it was like, right, break it down, tell me what you think I see. And it's come down to one sentence in a paragraph because of the words.
I think people overlook it because they see themselves as the authority. And because I'm an authority and you're coming to me for anxiety, for example, or whatever it is that you want to get better at, because I'm the authority, I'm supposed to not ask questions. I can't say to you, why do you, why did you react like that? If I'm the authority, then that's like people are worried. Again, it's back to ego. People are worried about losing that pedestal feeling or the authoritarian feeling. But because of working with you for so long and integrating everything that I've learned, like I pick up on subtle cues and then things that I want to come back to. Like if you were my client and the way you spoke when you said subconscious, most people would just say subconscious and talk with their hands, but your hands. So my alarm bell goes off and goes, question him on that. What? So why was subconscious in bunny ears? Because, and I guarantee most people watching this will go, I didn't even see that. So whenever you, do you want to elaborate a wee bit on that? I know because we've spoken about this a million times, but if you want to elaborate a bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can also tell by the giggle and whatnot that you know what's coming. Yeah, I mean, every kind of school that we've been to, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've kind of seen numerous ones where they teach that, you know, you do the induction, you get somebody into hypnosis. Yeah, I don't quite know what they go into, but for this argument's sake, you do the induction, they go into hypnosis, you do the deepener, and then you talk to the subconscious.
Yeah.
Right. One, it's never been kind of proven to exist. Two, nobody can find it. No matter how many people have looked for it, they just can't find it. What they all kind of think of as this all singing, all dancing control center that you speak to and people miraculously change, it doesn't exist. It's not there. And I know this to a lot of people. I'm going to get a lot of flack for this because I always do. So, hey, I'm used to it. I've got a really, really thick skin. But at the end of the day, if you take this and you just take it with a, what if that's true? And you look to, you know, if your client's sat there and they've got their eyes closed, it's not because they're sleeping. They're not deaf. Okay. They can still hear you. They can still open their eyes and walk out the room if they want to. They've chosen to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason they've got their eyes closed is because it blocks out all distractions. It's easier to imagine. And essentially all you're doing is having them, okay, go from point A, okay, to be able to work through some stuff, to imagine what's going on, to be able to get to a better place. Okay. I'm not going to throw out loads of different terms and everything else because I don't know who's going to watch it. But there is no definitive subconscious mind that you talk to. You are just communicating, hopefully effectively, with the person in front of you so that they can understand, and then you can use whatever you need to get them from A to B.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I would have done it even if you didn't do the bunny ears because we've talked about it so often. Like I still, whenever I work with clients that I'm using imagination, a lot of the time I will call it their subconscious because universally they just know what you're talking about. But I think as a practitioner or as the coach, it's really useful for me to know that this isn't like, if you just think it's subconscious and you're telling the subconscious, then you're taking away your power and their power. There's a mystical thing doing it, which is fine for them to believe initially. But if you understand that the subconscious doesn't actually exist, then you can then filter that back to the client and teach them that it was actually them that did. It's their power, it's their awareness, and explain it in such a way that the next time they need to do it, it's probably bad business, but the next time that they're feeling panicked or anything, it's them that has the power to overcome that. So I know we've spoke about the subconscious quite a bit, so I thought that would be something that I would like to bring back. Another question that I have for you that I think fits in with all of this as well is, what are the bad recommendations that you hear in your industry? And what advice would you offer instead? So the first one is, like, what do you hear often that you think that makes your head drop?
Before I grab that for the bad recommendations, one thing I will say is anybody who takes this, you know, the subconscious quote that I've just said, keep it in your own head. Don't be telling it to the client. Okay.
Yeah.
Because like Liam's just made a very, very valuable point. which is if a client comes to me and says they believe in the subconscious, or they've seen it on the TV, their friends had it work, they believe in shamanism, mystical fairies, chakra balancing, whatever it is, whether it's pseudoscience or not, to them, it is their belief.
Yeah.
If you work with that, your work, I guarantee you, okay, and I don't, Liam knows I don't give out guarantees, right? I guarantee, right, that you will, one, not only build better rapport with them, okay, but on top of that, they are going to be more inclined to listen and follow what you ask them to do. And
Yeah.
that in and of itself will help them and help you along the way. Okay, so
I think
just to throw that out there.
just to jump in there as well, I think that again comes back to ego. If you come to me and you tell me that you believe in a unicorn that lives at the bottom of your garden, and that unicorn is the reason for you being able to do whatever it is that you want, and my ego comes in and says unicorns aren't real, it's not my right to tell you that, and it's not helpful for me to tell you that, unless you're going to go out and kill a load of people because your unicorn told you to. That would be bad. But if I can work with your belief, that's fine. Let's imagine the unicorn. Because I think about it, like we've both worked with a lot of children as well. And when I work with children, some of the stuff that I am trying to imagine that they're telling me, like that this guy looks like this and he's got 14 arms but only 2 hands. And like you wouldn't turn around to a kid and go, that's impossible. Just shut up. I don't care if they have a mechanism in their head that a wee man pulls that makes them pee themselves, and I can convince them to tell that wee man to stop pulling that, to like ring a bell to say he's going to pull it so they can go to the bathroom. Like that's madness, but it helps them and it's going to work for them. So it's back to working with the person and checking your ego at the door. So just because it's not your belief,
it's not your power.
Yeah.
It's not, you do not have control over anybody. You don't, and you will get a lot further by turning around to somebody and asking them, one, what it is that they honestly want. Okay. And working with them with that process, because not everything that you say, my belief might not be yours. Yours won't be a client's. A client's won't be Ben's. Ben's won't be whatever. I can have things in my mind, and this is a mistake. Aha! There we go, full circle back to the kind of the issues and cock-ups and mistakes and everything else. Is I had this when I first started because I was told all you have to do is tell somebody X, Y. I'd done all the traditional stuff, and I'd always have this, but if I had this issue, I'd want this. And I would try in the very, very early days with anybody who volunteered to try and have that belief kind of superimposed onto them to see if it worked. Okay, because I'm thinking, I know what's best. Clearly, this is what you can have. Happy days. Yeah, it didn't work out so well. I mean, they'd get a change for a week or so, and then they turn around and go, I feel shit again. Until I started to go, what is it that you want? What do you think you'd need? Oh, hold on, this makes it a lot easier. We don't have control. Like Liam says, check your ego at the door, leave it there, lock it out. It's not about you on any level. And Liam will have picked up the disgust on my face then, because I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Well, it doesn't help anyone. Bringing your ego, again, I think that whenever you specialize in a subject, I think it's always worth having like 5 other things that you delve into. Like the fact that I was a martial artist first, so I've been doing that over 20 years now. You have to check your ego at the door whenever a wee tiny boy kicks you full hook in the head and you think, that wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to win this. So I have no problem checking my ego at the door. And even I might be in a 3-piece custom-made suit, and I might say to a guy who's worth millions of pounds, because he knows me as a magician, if I took out my magic wand and waved it and could create whatever you wanted, what would that look like? Whereas that just sounds like a ridiculous statement, and if you could see me doing it dressed to the nines, it doesn't make no sense egotistically to do that. But because I know the authority I gained on this person was when he saw me perform magic, then it makes sense to connect that back in and say, this is my belief system. If I had this, And then, like you said, you're asking them. I'm not saying this is what your best life would look like. I'm saying to you, what would your best life, if this all went away and you had the greatest life ever, what would that be?
Yeah.
So
If you don't check your ego, I mean, I had my ego checked when I was about 9 in a martial arts class. I was doing it for about a year or so, and I thought I was pretty good. And then you had to obviously go around and spar, and had my guard up. I was there. I was ready. Pads on. Yeah, let's go. And I literally ended up with a bloody nose and a cauliflower ear, which is amusing in and of itself when you look at yourself in a mirror. But it was from a guy who literally had one arm and was half blind, but he'd been doing it 25 years, and he beat the living crap out of me. And it was just, very, very humbling experience.
yeah,
So yeah, check your ego at the door, because once it comes into play, you won't think straight, you won't see straight, and it's not in the best interest of anybody, especially the client.
yeah, you're trying to lead them on an experience to break through whatever barriers they have for themselves, not the imagined ones you're assuming that they have. Uh, so does that kind of answer the question? That answers it a wee bit.
Yeah, well, the bad recommendations. God, where do you start? Yeah, the one, just talk to the subconscious. It has all the answers. No, it doesn't. Stop doing it. Two, this is the only kind of like, training you will need. After this, you can go out and do whatever you want with whoever you want, and you'll be fantastic and make tons and tons of cash, and you'll be globally known like Tony Robbins. No, you won't. And you will fail a lot along the journey. No one is ever told that they will fail with clients. They're just
So
not.
when it happens,
Because
people like do not. I've even seen it in training rooms when they feel with like fake clients. They're the clients that are training with you, and you're pretending each other's a client. But most people have some sort of wee tweak that they could develop or be helped with. And when the person feels with them, they're like, this, but, and nobody knows what to do because they're not ready to do it. And then you hear of people just bullshitting their way through the rest of the, like, it's your fault, Craig, that you couldn't do X, Y, and Z because the technique works, but the protocol is foolproof.
yeah, I mean, I think I've been on two courses. One was 7 days, another one was 5 days. And I will be blatantly honest with you, the trainer kept pulling me out of the class saying, you shouldn't be in here because you know too much, come and have a coffee. Well, but you're working with real clients in the other room with phobias, with anxiety. No, I want to stay in because I'd been doing it 2 years by this point.
Yeah.
But it was still hands-on experience. And anytime anybody role plays in a class, how often do you see the person turn around being the client and go, actually, no, I still feel shit.
Again, social pressure.
Well done. You're a brilliant therapist. I love you. My problems are gone. No, the real world doesn't work like that. It's just, if you walk out of a class, have all the confidence in the world. Confidence is an amazing thing when it's harnessed in the right way. But if you have the confidence, check your ego at the door and sit there and think, I need to know more about this. I want to learn how people tick, why they tick, what makes them do X, Y, and Z. Are the patterns the same for everybody? If they're not, why not? Learn about the person, because until you do, and I hope it never happens. I hope it never happens to me. I know a couple of friends it has, where they've worked with people with chronic issues and they've gotten an email saying that the client took their own life. It happens, and I don't mean that in a cold-hearted way. If you see enough people for enough number of years, at some point, and if you are not ready for it, you will be kicking yourself. What could I have done differently? What didn't I see? What did I see? And it's not that, well, maybe I could have done. You will, I guarantee you, be kicking yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just look to do a bit more. Don't do the online training courses, which are £9 off Groupon for a certificate, they're shit. Just don't touch them. Don't call yourself a therapist. Don't contact me if you have got one of those and call yourself a therapist, because no real world experience. Don't touch them. They're not worth it. And ultimately go out and learn from people who are not only doing it, but have been doing it a number of years and will, one, answer your questions. I answer people's questions, right? Mm-hmm. Now and again, I can't do it all the time because obviously, everybody's got bills to pay. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to seek out people, even if it's for a recommendation. But seek out people you want to learn from, who will have the skills or tools. But if not, they'll check their ego at the door and refer you to somebody else that they learn from.
That's what I was going to add in there. Being willing to say, look, I'm not at the level to help you at the moment, but I know someone who has. Because I know I did that at the start. I think it was my first PTSD client. I wouldn't even know. They had come to me for anxiety, and I was talking about the stuff that you and the things you had went over. There was just alarm bells going off, and eventually I had to stop the session and asked a few real personal questions. And when it came out, I was like, I think you've got PTSD, is that? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, but that's not what you told me. You had slight anxiety, but so I just did a progressive relaxation for the rest of the session, just as something to give them. And then I referred them on because I was like, look, this is just above my wheelhouse. Whereas the worst thing I could have done was go, I'll give it a go. Can't do that much damage. So again, it seems to be the theme of the conversation, but just checking your ego. The fact that I was able to go, this is beyond me. I need to go somewhere else with this. To yourself is what I actually did. And then you ended up sending me on a completely different rabbit hole of learning about PTSD and buying 3 books on it and doing a study course, and just that's what I like about the way, it's why we get on so well. I think it's whenever I realized I couldn't do that, I could have just left that and put it on my site and stuff and said, look, if you have PTSD, I don't want anything to do with you. But with your guidance and advice and the fact that I'm like yourself, I go dive straight in. Like I spent the next 2 to 3 months deep diving into it so that I know what was going on. And that was about 2 years ago, maybe. And I haven't had a PTSD client since. But the fact that I have all that there in case it ever comes up, I think is really important.
I remember you. Sorry, mate. I was just going to say, I remember you doing that and coming back to me. And then I also remember once you'd kind of gone through it all and you were like, holy crap, I didn't see half it. And then you went and done kind of one of your seminars. I don't know whether it was at a youth club or a pain clinic or something. Memory slippage. Well, it's irony. But I remember you coming back to me and saying, do you know what? I'd have never seen that before. Anxiety, PTSD, stress, and kind of go. But you were able to pick it up by what each person was doing.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and thought, fair play. This is somebody who's actually gone away and put the bloody work in. I mean, we never stop. I'm still a student. I never, ever class myself as an expert. You'll never hear me say it.
Yeah.
We should always continue to be better.
And again, that was a combination of the stuff I learned plus my understanding of stagecraft and the Z scan that I do when I'm on stage. So normally when I'm Z scanning, if I'm just performing, I'm just looking to see if people are interested, if I need to go faster, slower, if I need to change tack. But whenever I was at that, the thing that I was at, just different alarm, like it was just popping up, like the way they're moving and reacting to this word and stuff. And it means that I felt it put me in a better position not to trigger anyone. Like I remember one of the talks that I did was in a room, and at the end of the room had a low ceiling and it was packed, and it's designed for about 50 people max. And I thought I was going to get about 20 people, and there was 98 in the room. There's one exit, and I'm standing in front of it, blocking it the whole way through my talk. I talked for an hour and a half and nobody left the room. But I think that was down to the fact that I knew where to change tack, when to pull people in and out. And I was able to say, because of my understanding, I was able to say at the end, if you take nothing away from this talk, just take away the fact that you've been in an enclosed space, overcrowded, with people talking about anxiety, which people with anxiety don't like to talk about, and nobody panicked, nobody freaked out, nobody left. And I've had people still, that was maybe, what, I can't remember, it was a few years back, and people still will say to me, I remember that, and anytime I freak out, I think, well, you didn't freak out in that arena. What's the difference? Just whenever you mention memory slip, that sort of takes me to, I wanted to segue off because you've been recently trying to memorize the odd one or two lists of things. And again, I talk about memory all the time. I think it's really important. It's one of the, it's one of the first things I asked Ben to teach me. So Ben, who will be on the podcast at some point, I haven't asked him yet, but this is me asking him now. And if he doesn't respond, then I'm taking that as a yes. But I originally went to Ben. I used to be shit with names. I think it's because working in bars, you just meet hundreds, if not thousands of people over the weekend, and I didn't need to know anyone's name. So I think I actively just block. People would say, hello, my name is, and my brain would just go, don't care. And then later on, I'd be like, I need to care about these people's names. So that's why I went to Ben. And again, I think it's really important so you can pull back on things. So what are you doing at the minute with memory work?
And why?
Why? I'll give practically the same answer as I gave on an interview about a week or so ago. Why not? But the serious answer is, one, I've always wanted to. My day-to-day memory has always been pretty good for what I've done, conversations that I've had and so forth. That's been fine. But generic kind of lists, we all get kind of like shopping lists, from somebody. I don't care whether it's your mum, your dad, your sister, your girlfriend, your husband, whoever it is. And you get to the shop and you come home and they're like, oh, and you've got to go again. So when Bernard came up and said, well, I'm going to do this course of learn how to memorize a deck of cards, I instantly just went, I've always wanted to do that. And I knew there'd be no trick to it. It's not a magic trick. It is literally bloody hard work that you put in. But as you know, because you've done it as well, Ben makes it so fun and so entertaining that it's a lot easier to go through it and actually just learn the techniques.
Yeah.
So I sat there and thought, well, how far can I push this? What can it be used for? So I've gotten to the point, I can memorize a deck of cards. I'm not super quick yet. Ben, coming for you. If somebody could please hog tie Ben and don't let him near a deck of cards, I'll be able to catch up at some point.
Do it in his mind. That's the beauty of memory work, is once you know the system. Like, I've had conversations with people, and as they're talking to me, and it's like in bars or restaurants or whatever, and I have no interest, I'm practicing. I'm going, but most of me is just practicing through the moves.
Yeah, so I've done the deck of cards. I've spent a few weeks going through the systems. I've got that pretty much honed the way I want it.
For
my maximum at the moment.
Sorry to interrupt you, but for people that don't know, when you say you've done a deck of cards, you mean someone can shuffle a deck, or you can shuffle it, whatever, and then you go through them and you're able to recall them in perfect order. That's what memorizing.
Yeah. So I've done that, and then I thought, well, I've done a deck. I'll push it a little bit further and see. Like I say, it's not really quick, so somebody would get really, really bored watching me doing it. But the point is, it can be done. Mm-hmm. And then I've done 2 separate decks using 2 different kind of routes or palaces. So anybody go and check out Ben's stuff, and you'll get a gist of this.
If you're checking out Ben's stuff, you're looking for
like memory palaces, or just I assume you can just contact them, you'll be fine. Memory palace or the journey or the peg system, just to give you an idea of what you're looking for when you go over there.
Yeah, and then I had to kind of I've done it, so I had to bounce back and forth between them while alternating cards from different decks, and that was a bit. I stopped at 160 digits of pi because to refresh it and keep them there, for about a week, you go over it and then they just stick. Somebody recommended the other night that I do 1,000 just for fun, but I'm thinking 160 kind of proves the point. If you do 160, you can do 1,000. But then I found it's been more applicable for day-to-day stuff as well. So my other half now doesn't need to text me a list of when I'm going to the shop. She just kind of tells me. Thankfully, it's not been more than like 7 things at the moment, so I'm kind of golden at the moment. That's really good. But day-to-day stuff, when I've been out on a walk, if I've met somebody new, able to memorize their name, the conversations that I've had when I get back, it's day-to-day. It sounds almost too good to be true, but my mental clarity has improved even more. There's less clutter. And I like it because a guy by the name of Nelson Dellis, he's a 4-time USA memory champion. He said, ordinarily, when you're given information, he likens it to it going in and you've wrote it down or typed it up and you've thrown it on the floor. So you walk in it, it's all says when you learn the techniques, it's the equivalent of you've still wrote it down in your mind, but it's now filed away. So there's less clue. You know exactly where to go. I mean, you know this because you use it for lists and everything else. And it's a lot easier to find the information. It's more clarity, less stress. And ultimately, I don't want to go and compete. I don't want to be seriously fast at stuff. But, I've got the idea of 10 decks bouncing around in my head just for fun. But again, it's just that, why not? It's there. I've wanted to do it. I've now done it. Oh, crap. Now I need to kind of take it a bit further with a couple of other bits and pieces with a few other techniques for numbers and stuff. So, yeah, why not?
Like your short answer, which is basically, why not? Because I know a lot of people watching this, they would set themselves a wee challenge or be asked to do a challenge, and then the why not would creep in, and then it would be followed by 50 reasons why not to do it and no reasons why to do it. Like, we all know that our memory fades as we get older, so why not just stop that from happening so you can walk into a room and remember why you're there? It's just simple. It doesn't have to be like you memorize a deck of cards and you show people. That's why I asked you why, because I know in the past, being a magician for a long time, I meet people that will say, oh, I used to be able to memorize a deck of cards. You're like, why can't you now? Oh, I just did it so I could show someone and it was cool. And you think that I was saying to them, well, imagine if you used that. The reason I wanted to learn a deck of cards wasn't so that I could memorize a deck of cards and show people in front. It was when I'm performing on stage, I want to remember everything they said, everything I've asked them to do, everywhere I took them from. There's a million things I need to remember, plus the bullet points of the routine, the names of cards, just loads of stuff. So I use that as my way of having fun building that ability. Whereas most people would go, oh, sure, what's the point in memorizing a deck of cards?
I think over the last 2 weeks or so, I've had messages with people saying, but it's not applicable to day-to-day life. And I give them a random list back of 15 words. And I go, right, you've got 2 minutes to memorize them. I come back and go, right, 15, give them back to me. Okay. And they sat there and I was like, yeah. I says, I know exactly how you've done that. I says, you've just read them from the previous list. And they're like, how'd you know? Because it's a cop-out, it's a shortcut. Right?
Yeah.
But if your memory day to day is 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information, 7 things you struggle with on a list, but you've gone from 7 to 52. So if you can do 52, you can do another 52. You don't have to do it all in one go. You can chunk it. But that instantly improves, like you say, bullet points, lists, conversations, pertinent bits of study that you need to do. You've just got those points that you go over. And it's applicable to every single thing that you do day to day. And, I think that's where it kind of comes in. I'm going to work on one for a number system next, which is going to take me a lot of time, and it will be a pain in the arse. I mean, big time. But I want to get it done, and that's the difference, because it will improve every single thing that I do day to day.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It's you put the work in now, so that. Oh, well, yeah, but I'm too old. I'm 44, and I've only just started doing it.
Yeah.
And my cognitive ability I tested today is the same as when I was 22.
That's brilliant.
Use it or lose it, literally.
Yeah. Again,
it's like when people, if you go to the gym, no one ever goes to you, oh, building a stronger, healthier body isn't applicable to real life. Because they can see it, it makes sense. That just filters into real life. But doing the mind work, like whenever I work with corporate, one of the things I do is just a list of 10. Because, like you said, the average person can remember 7 to 9 if they're pretty good items, 7 to 9 things. But again, they'll struggle with it if you just rhyme it off to them. But if you practice the technique, and I will teach them within 5 minutes, they can remember 10 backwards, forwards. Then we can go on into, if I say to you, what's number 5, you just tell me. You've already just become nearly 3 times. You've increased like from 7 to 10. Even if that's all you did, that's still going to be applicable to the day to day to real life. So I just wanted to make sure we got a wee bit of that, because again, the memories, I had a lot of memory work done before I started working with you. So then when you give me all the tips and ideas to look for and the words to listen to and how people say the words, if I had got that just, and then tried to go in, dealing with a client and remember everything that you told me to remember, like I would have had a file block in front of me going through it. What was that you said with there? That instead now I can go subconscious, lock that in there and come back to that later, or I can a different word or whatever it is. So I'm gonna round it up. We have one question that I like to ask that's just for me more than anything. You already have answered it a wee bit, I suppose, but if you had a superpower or you were a superhero, what would your power be, or what could you do?
Wow. That's a good. See, I knew this was coming as well.
I do love my superheroes. So,
as egotistical as I am, and I am very egotistical.
but just to interrupt you, it's
fact. We talked about this a lot. We get accused of having big egos and like what not being very humble, and I'd be like, we're the most humble people you'll ever meet, because the shit that we talk about, like to most people it sounds egotistical to say I can remember 160 digits of pi, but you can. So you're backing up all your talk. It'd be different if you were saying you can jump from building A to building B when you couldn't jump the length of yourself. It's not backed up by anything, so it doesn't make any sense. So
ego aside, continue.
Yeah. I would like, and it's weird for me to say this because I'd love to be able to say I'd love to be able to do this, just for me. But I would love the ability to be able to influence people on a superhuman level, just for them to be able to unlock, even if it's just for a time, all that what if, to show them that they have a damn sight more potential than anybody's gave them credit for, or that they give themselves credit for. Just that little what if, just for a time, you could just go, that's yours, and just, see them smile, see them sit there and go, do you know what? Yeah, thanks for that. Because just that little bit, I think, if they're willing to just not jump out of a comfort zone, not do anything that scares the pants off them, but just push a little bit further to the point where they think, not quite sure, and keep going at it until they achieve it, that is what's able to help them move mountains. So, selfishly, I'd want to say kind of something else, but selflessly, no, I mean, I'm all for kind of, wanting people to be better. And it's why I do what I do. Yeah. It's why I push myself, because if I can do it, anybody can kind of do it. A lot of people are doing it, and if we can, so can they. So yeah, that'd be mine, I think.
That's an awesome superpower to have. Good answer. And again, it fits back to what we were saying. None of us were really scholars when it came to school. I didn't read anything in school at all. And like you say, if we can do it, then anyone can actually do it. So where can people find you if they want to follow you or if they want to get coaching from you?
If any questions?
They can't. I'm not. No, they can't. I'm not here. Stop asking me questions. No, I'm kidding. If they want any coaching or they want to get hold of me, they can do it through all the usual places. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. You can shoot me over a message. And if you do drop me a message on Facebook or Instagram and you do want any coaching, I will then give you the email address and everything else. I've taken down my website because, to be honest, I was getting too much come through in the way of random kind of questions. And I literally didn't have the time to respond to everything that I needed and do the due diligence. So if you do want to get hold of me, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, drop me a private message and I will do my best to get back to you with anything to do with coaching and so forth.
I'll put the links below, but it's just at Craig Galvin for people listening. So.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to find them through me, but the links will be below everywhere as well. Anyway.
So thanks again for coming on. As always, I love our conversations. It's just good to record a few of them. And for everyone listening, thank you very much. And
we will speak to you all
soon.
Cheers,
Mike. Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.